Yes, of course, we will be carrying the CNN presidential debate live starting at 6 this evening, immediately followed by a presidential debate special hosted by Barry Markson. You can hear both here on 92.3 FM and at KTAR.com. And coming up over the next couple of hours, we will preview the debate through a few different lenses. The historic, the hysterical, and the Herculean, as in the effort needed to move voters from one candidate's camp to another, which I think most analysts are saying to themselves right now, that's not what's going to happen. What happens tonight is the people who are still undecided, and that is people who are, hey, I'm still waiting for Trump, or I'm still waiting for Biden to convince me that they are the best candidate. But also the people who are going to decide by watching this debate, maybe they won't keep their mind exactly in that column, but they'll use the debate tonight to figure out who is the least offensive candidate to vote for. The so-called lesser of the two evils. Still to come, starting at about 12:30 this afternoon, Mike Noble with Noble Predictive Insights will join us to talk about polling. Between 1 and 1:30, media maven and former Univision anchor Mari Rábago will be joining us to talk about Latino issues, and longtime Republican political consultant Chuck Coughlin will join us to talk about candidate performance expectations. Then after 1:30, Steve Goldstein, who is a longtime media member here in the Valley and has been moderating some of these primary debates in Arizona and in Maricopa County, will join us to give us the moderator perspective. Something, by the way, that I've had a chance to do before. I've had a chance to actually moderate a couple of different gubernatorial debates, but never been on that big stage with the presidential bigwigs, right? And then at about 1:45, look for NBC News chief political analyst Chuck Todd to join us to talk about the national perspective of Arizona and our swing state status. But let's start with Arizona. And a couple of famous Arizonans, a Republican first. Here is what former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer told me this morning. She, by the way, came in for my AZ Political podcast, which will be released tomorrow, and you definitely want to tune into that because we talked about all sorts of different things. But here's what she told me before we started taping today, what she wants to hear about issue-wise in tonight's debate.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing them talk about the economy and the security of the border. I think those are the two issues that are on everybody's minds, and we need to move on and talk about policy and not talk about junk.
By junk, by the way, she means stolen election conspiracies going back 4 years. Governor Brewer recently wrote an op-ed piece for the Arizona Republican, in which she tells her fellow Republicans to get off the stolen election express, and which she believes, by the way, is a track that leads you straight to losing in 2024, and wants conservatives to, in the Republican Party to return to conservative principles in order to win votes in 2024. So, does she worry that something Donald Trump is going to focus on tonight?
Well, it's always a possibility, and of course, I hope that he doesn't. I want him to, I think that this debate tonight is going to be directed at those people that are undecided. I think a majority of people have already made up their mind who they're going to support, but I think that tonight they need to talk about things that are important to these people that haven't made up their minds, and their minds are on the economy and on the security of the border. And we're all worn out with all the distress that's taking place out there and all the angriness.
Yeah, what she called junk formerly. Yeah, and there you go. We have more independents in Arizona than we've ever had before. They are going to be making a large part of all the decisions electorally over the next couple of months. Of course, we have the primary next month, the last Tuesday in July, and then in November, the general election. Interestingly, even though Jan Brewer doesn't see eye to eye with Donald Trump when it comes to election integrity, and she's a member of the Democracy Defense Project Board, which pushes back against stolen election conspiracies, she told me today that she plans to vote for Trump for a third time this fall. As far as what former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer thinks Joe Biden will talk about,
Well, he's going to probably be told to talk about his Bidenomics, which, if you look at, really it hasn't been good for the country. But I think that's what he'll want to talk about, unless he gets wound up or he forgets what he's going to talk about.
Something I know some Democrats are worried about as well, although one Democrat didn't sound like he was worried about it. Arizona political consultant Tony Connie served as the assistant state director in Arizona for the Biden-Harris campaign in 2020. And Jamie West and I asked him this morning on Arizona's Morning News about Biden staying focused, because Trump will try to rattle Biden tonight. I mean, it's just part of what Trump does, albeit usually from a distance, not 8 feet apart. So I asked Tony Connie what Biden needs to do to stay focused, and what theme or themes does Biden need to keep coming back to?
President Biden has been doing this for a long time. You know, you're going to hear a lot about. He has a lot of experience. I don't think that Trump is going to be able to rattle him, even though he is going to try. And I think it's just going to the attempts to rattle the president will actually be a part of the contrast, because it is, like I said, it's going to show a man, former President Trump, who he really just wants to talk about retribution and revenge, and is going to be talking about, he's the guy that said on day one he wants to be a dictator, which is a wild thing for a presidential candidate to say. And so those are the ways that he's going to be trying to rattle President Biden. But President Biden is just going to need to focus on his accomplishments, focus on really bringing to light some of the most extreme parts of Donald Trump's platform that, frankly, a lot of Americans haven't heard about yet.
Here's KTAR senior political analyst Mike O'Neill on how he thinks the two candidates need to conduct themselves tonight.
Strategically, I think it's very clear what each candidate has to do. In the case of Joe Biden, he's got to come across the way he did in the State of the Union, awake and in command of his faculties and of the issues. Donald Trump has to come across as not unhinged.
Arizona political consultant Stan Barnes, who runs Copper State Consulting, expects very little civility in this debate, but he's right. It's historic.
The history in the making is what underlies all of it for me. That one former president who lost to the incumbent is come back to run again. It has only happened one other time in American history, and it's one of the many, many things that makes this more interesting than most debates I can remember in the past.
Yeah, and even if Stan Barnes has already made up his mind, he's all in for the entertainment factor tonight.
What used to be the politeness of the Kennedy-Nixon era has devolved, and we are now in there are no rules, and we are now in there is a performance metric that is entirely different in the way the American people judge the man or the woman at the podium in a presidential election. It's just not what it was 50 years ago.
Yeah, when it seemed like it was two podiums instead of three rings, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, you heard Stan Barnes refer to this. It has happened before where a former president has taken on a current president who beat him previously. And that would have been Benjamin Harrison in 1888, beat Grover Cleveland, who came back to beat him in 1892. So it is historic, and it's historic because in some ways it's hysterical as well. So we'll be watching tonight, and don't forget, we will be carrying the CNN presidential debate live starting at 6 this evening, followed by a presidential debate special hosted by KTAR legal analyst and host Barry Markson. You can catch it all here on 92.3 FM and at KTAR.com. All right, still to come. Media maven Mary Rábago is going to join us to talk about Latino issues. Chuck Coughlin joining us to talk about candidate performance expectations. But next, Mike Noble of Noble Predictive Insights, a pollster, to talk about, guess what? Polls. Joining me right now, one of my favorite guys to talk about all this stuff with is Mike Noble, head bean counter and head counter of heads, as in taking polls for Noble Predictive Insights. All right.
Hey, Jim, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So I think this is really interesting. Even though Biden and Trump are both unpopular individually and as a and as contrasting candidates, most American adults 6 in 10 tell a survey conducted by the Associated Press and Nork Center for Public Affairs Research that they are extremely or very likely to watch some element of this CNN presidential debate, live or in clips, read about it, listen to commentary about the performance of the candidates in news or social media. Both Biden and Trump supporters view the debate as a major test for their candidate, or just a spectacle not to miss. But many are watching to see which is the least worst candidate to vote for. Is that what your surveying showing?
Yeah, and not only our surveying, but you just look at the data across the board, is that with the debate in general, it's kind of like, hey, if you knew that there's going to be a train crash tonight at like 7 p.m. Anyways, that's basically the debate. Yeah, would you want to watch? And you're like, no, but yes, I do. And that's frankly what's happening, because not only do we have a repeat of the same candidates of last time, the same two nominees, which is Biden and Trump, that we had 4 years ago. Here's the issue. Both of them didn't really get any better, and they're both bad choices just for very different reasons. So another way to say it, they're both doing worse than they were 4 years ago, but Biden's just doing worser than Trump right now, mainly because he has a little bit of a base problem, especially with the younger wing of his party. And if you look at the polling right now in general, like nationally, you look at the 538 average or the Real Clear Politics average.
Tell everybody what those are real quick.
Yeah, so they're polling aggregators. So like myself, I'm a pollster, right? My firm, Noble Predictive Insights, will do polls, right? But we are one of many firms. And here's the thing. I think we're pretty accurate and good, but, it may not just totally trust it. So what you do is when you average out the polls, typically the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And that's been historically a pretty good indicator, right? So when you look at the averages of the polls that have been put out, both show 538 and Real Clear Politics, the two main forecasters, have Republicans ahead nationally for the popular vote. But here's the problem. Democrats always win the national popular vote. The only question is by how much. Just to see a Republican leading that, let alone, is another sign saying that, hey, Democrats have a problem. Because I think that's why we're having the debate early, too, because it's kind of unprecedented that an incumbent president will have a debate this early. It's almost like they're trying to change the narrative.
I don't think we've ever had a debate before the nominating conventions.
Correct. And that's the thing, is that's why this is. So when you look at, try not to listen to all the noise. Like, let's look at the facts, look at historical. What are they trying to do? Change the narrative, try to get on front of this, because Biden's trying to push back against, he's not up for office. He's not up to the job for office, right? You see the memes and things like that. It's just, let's be honest, it's hurting him. And you see it very clearly that Trump's base is motivated. They feel like he's been persecuted, going after, and like they are fired up right now, and they're not happy with the way things have been going the last 4 years. Now you look over to Biden, his base isn't that fired up, especially the younger wing of the party, because again, how much do they have in common with what would be the oldest sitting president in history if he's elected?
Yeah, I remember you and I were talking about something a couple of months ago. I can't remember which poll it was, but it suggested that there was a large percentage of 18 to 34-year-old voters who were in the Trump camp.
Yeah, so the thing is what we're seeing right now, so not only by age group, but also by ethnicity. So Hispanic Latinos, which we have a very large group here in Arizona, but like African Americans. But then you see like middle age on down. So what we're witnessing, if you can believe national polling, but also regional polling has kind of been backing it up, we're basically witnessing the biggest demographic shift between the two parties since the Civil War era was back in the 1960s. So what, 8 decades ago?
Hey, wait, that was a bold statement. Say that again.
I know. A couple heads will explode. So if you're driving, pull over. So we're witnessing the biggest ideological shift between the Republican and Democratic Party. So the coalitions that comprise the two parties, you're seeing the biggest shift where the older wing of the electorate is moving towards Biden. The college educated wing are moving towards Biden. We're basically middle age, but as you get down on age, it gets bigger. Where they're moving to the Republicans. So they're ideologically sorting. Because, like, for example, African Americans nationally vote 9 and 10 vote Democrat, right? Mm-hmm. Not a massive voting block, but when you're winning 90% of them, like, that's pretty good. So what you're seeing is that they're starting to sort out between these two groups. And that's what's changing the game. So basically the game for the last 8 years, these common coalitions that have been between the two parties, because they have to be big tents to win. And you're seeing this sorting happen, and it's because I think it's just a unique dynamic with new technology, social media, et cetera. But also, they're just both really bad candidates, and we've never really been in a scenario where we have not only a repeat, but they're both bad, so they kind of have to make a choice. Like it's like choosing between anthrax and cyanide. You're like, oh, these are both terrible. But like, which route to like? All right, you kind of balance. I mean, it's an extreme way to say it, but it drives the point.
Yeah. All right. So real quickly, I wanted to ask you a question about third-party candidates because a lot of people would say that it was a billionaire from Texas who got Bill Clinton elected because he inserted himself and was a viable third-party candidate. But here's the thing. RFK Jr. is polling, 7, 11%, something like that.
Correct.
And when you insert him into these a couple of different polls, Trump's support drops slightly, but he still stays in the lead. Now, does that hold true through November 6th? Do people say, yeah, I'm still going to vote for him, even though I don't think he's going to win? Or is it, as we get closer to the election, people just go, no, there's no way I'm voting for that guy?
So 2 pieces of that. So your first piece is, so when you inject the third-party candidate, you're right. Ross Perot was literally the gold standard for independent third-party candidates. Remember, he didn't win. Basically, it's incredibly hard to win as a third party. So the likelihood of winning are next to zero, right? But so really it's they're more playing a spoiler.
Yeah.
The problem is that the electorate has a problem voting for someone that doesn't really have a chance to win. They don't really like to throw away their vote. And so his numbers, I think, are a little inflated right now because they kind of this RFK nostalgia, right? And you notice the people that are moving over to him are younger voters and Democrats. So young Democrats, right? And remember, they're kind of the least engaged of the electorate, but they kind of have more of that nostalgia. And so you look at that, but I see that they're going to get beat down from now until Election Day, so I don't think it'll end at that number. I think it'll be lower.
Yeah.
But we see it in the polling, especially here in Arizona, Trump only drops a point when you add RFK Jr. in the mix, but Biden drops 4 or 5, and you see, okay, what support loses there? And it's mainly among young Democrats.
Which is interesting because out of the 3, RFK Jr. is the youngest, but he's still in his 70s.
Yeah, he's no spring chicken, right? And so, but to your point there, that's also another indicator of showing that, hey, Biden has a bit of an enthusiasm problem or base problem where Trump's base is fired up. And so that third party, they can't win. However, to your point, who are they going to take? You have these A, B variable, now you add a C. Who are they pulling more from? So that's the issue right now.
All right. That is Mike Noble of Noble Predictive Insights. He's going to stick around to talk more about polling as we have your CNN presidential debate preview going on here. All right. Still to come here on our preview of the CNN presidential debate. Former Univision news anchor and media mogul Mari Rábago is going to join us to talk about Latino issues and perspective, and longtime Republican political consultant Chuck Coughlin is going to join us to talk about candidate performance expectations. And right now we have from Noble Predictive Insights, Mike Noble. I had Governor Jan Brewer on my AZ Political podcast today, and I told her that I know a few Republicans who say they'll vote for Biden. They've had it with Trump. There's a few of them.
Yeah.
But I know even more Republicans who, while not happy to vote for Trump, could never see themselves voting for Joe Biden. I asked her if she landed in either one of those groups. She didn't answer that question, but she did tell me that she's voting for Trump again. But what can either one of these candidates do to convince anybody, yeah, you know what? You really should like me, even though poll after poll after poll says most of you don't like either one of us, and you really hate that it's the both of us again.
Yeah, so that's that we have right now, and you summed it up pretty well, is that, and you're seeing this all the time, and you're looking at this in like GOP circles, for example, you're seeing that a lot of folks that were very anti-Trump, so let's say, former Attorney General Barr, right? Barr, for him, he no fan of Trump. I wrote a book about it, right? Like, no fan. Then they asked him in an interview, they go, oh, who are you going to vote for? He's like, oh, I'm voting for Trump over Biden. The reporter's just like speechless. And you see them go through this calculus trying to explain it, is that they're in this situation like, okay, you're voting for the candidate, but then there's also, but what's your other option, right? And so the electorate, frankly, I feel terrible for them because they're just in such a tough spot. But like a lot of these moderate Republicans, they may not be fans of Trump, but they're definitely not fans of Biden.
Right.
So it's like, again, it's just this choice you have to make between these two. And so a lot of them are holding their nose with it. But you're also seeing in the numbers where, Trump has basically consolidated the GOP base, because there's definitely some folks that were not fans of it. But it didn't really quite happen until it kind of seemed like he basically captured the primary, even though he's not officially the person. But, the other candidates have dropped out, endorsed, et cetera. Is that when you've seen that happen, you see like the Republicans basically are like, okay, like, you know what? I may not love this, but I definitely don't love Biden. So you know what? I'm with it. Whereas on the other end, we'll see. And that's why, Trump has done a little better in his favorability. So compared to 4 years ago, he was about -8 in his favorability, at least per our polling in Arizona. He's now only -1, where Biden was like, I don't know, +10. And now he's like -17. So
wow, that guy's seen a big swing.
Yeah. So did absence make the heart grow fonder with Trump? I think it kind of did. But also with Biden, with what he campaigned on and marketed, and let's be honest, based on his issues, ran as more of a moderate Democrat, I'd say a lot of the issues and things that he's tackled probably didn't line up with what he campaigned on. So definitely where Biden was before 4 years ago to now, different. But that's where this debate, I don't think is it going to change many minds? But again, there could be a breakout moment, a gaffe or an issue, et cetera, that happens. And I think that's what everyone's tuning in to watch.
Yeah. I do have something I think could change some minds, especially those moderate Republicans, and that is who Donald Trump decides to pick for his running mate. And are you of a mindset that a lot of people I know are? It's Nikki Haley or nobody else, because she's the only thing that brings more voters in.
I think her, but also I think Tim Scott. Based on the polling that I've seen, Tim Scott does well, especially to help with the African American vote as they're kind of making some headway into that core Democratic coalition. I think Tim Scott could be good. Marco Rubio could also be a good one, but it would help with Hispanic vote. But the only problem is he's not the right type of Hispanic electorally, because he's a Cuban American compared to being a Mexican or South America American, right? So it kind of helps you in states like Florida and stuff, but that's already kind of in the red column. But in the key 6 battleground states, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, it's more that doesn't help you as much, right? So, and if he picks a base candidate, for example, some of that more aligns with him, like towing the line, like a MAGA style candidate, I think that could turn off some moderates. But so I think his choice in VP will be helpful to see if, try to do a unifier. So whether a Nikki Haley or Tim Scott are frankly my choices, or if I was advising, essentially.
Yeah, it's, you're absolutely right on Tim Scott, but I don't think anybody else besides those two really makes a difference for Donald Trump.
Correct.
All right, so let's take a one-person poll of pollster Mike Noble.
Okay, right.
Who performs better tonight in the CNN presidential debate that we will carry live here?
Who will perform better? Here's the thing. Your guess is as good as mine, because one, we don't usually have these things too early. Trump on there. The question is, can Trump be, can he come off more measured and not so maybe like chaotic, or doesn't come off very angry? Like, can he come off more as a leader compared to like a bomb thrower? So I think that's going to be Trump's challenge and opportunity. And I think for Biden, I think it's clear that he has to show that, he's up for the job. He's up for the task. But if he has maybe some of those Biden moments or whatever, that's going to be tough. And then also articulating his record, because they've done a terrible job talking about Bidenomics or Build Back Better. Like, they have some wins. They've just done a really bad job of articulating. So can he get that through will be the question.
All right. That is Mike Noble of Noble Predictive Insights. Thank you, as always, my friend, for stopping by.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Should be fun tonight.
Thanks for dressing nicer than me. I appreciate that. On the way, former Univision news anchor and media mogul Mari Rábago is going to join us to talk about Latino issues and perspectives. Longtime Republican political consultant Chuck Coughlin, who's no longer Republican, is going to join us to talk about candidate performance and expectations. Talk about Latino issues and perspective, and longtime Republican political consultant Chuck Coughlin, not Todd, who is joining us to talk about candidate performance expectations. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Un placer. Thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. I appreciate it. Let's start with you, Mari. As we look at Latino and Hispanic issues, we really should point out that This is not a solid voting bloc we're talking about here. Most people of Latino heritage are deeply personally conservative on social issues, but liberal on fiscal issues. That doesn't even hold true all the way through, depending on what their heritage is, right?
You are correct. We're a very diverse community, even when it comes to voting, definitely. You know, politics, like I was mentioning to you right before we went on the air. I believe the biggest issue that have got a lot of Latinos away from the Republican Party was definitely immigration. And the rhetoric, the strong, rhetoric there was against and, calling or naming every immigrant or immigrant descent as a criminal. I think that really part, the Latino community, a big portion of the Latino community from that party. But like you said, in my own family, there's, a lot of diversity when it comes to, who are you going to vote for or what are your ideal is or what do you believe. And I believe that is the richness about our community. And that is the work that the candidates have to do. How do they speak to us? How do they quarter us in a different way where they can actually connect with us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Chuck, even us non-Latino dudes like us can figure out that posting a picture of yourself with a taco salad and a deep-fried tortilla bowl on Cinco de Mayo and saying, I love Hispanics on social media like Trump did in 2016 isn't going to win any Latino votes.
Yeah, or putting on a wrestling mask or something
Please
like
don't.
that. Yeah,
Please don't.
Exactly.
I love those things, by the way. Mascadonas, I love that stuff.
Can I clarify one thing, please?
Yeah.
And I know by now you know, but Cinco de Mayo is definitely not Mexican Independence Day, right?
No, absolutely,
We want to make
yeah.
sure everybody's on the same page,
Oh, don't ruin it for everybody.
Actually, a very Mexican-American holiday.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a reason to have margaritas.
Yeah, right.
We celebrate on this side of the border, but south side of the border, actually, there's not a big celebration for Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. But it's what can the candidates do tonight, either one of them, to win over people from any voting bloc? Chuck, or people have already just made up their minds. They're like, they don't like Trump, they don't like Biden, and they really don't like them together.
Yeah, first, who's watching, right? Because, it's not going to be, there'll be a lot of people watching for the train wreck purpose here.
Right.
Just to see, it's like watching a NASCAR race to see an accident. And so that's part of what we have to deal with here. And then who's going to exceed expectations or who's going to fall below those expectations in terms of gravity of appearance, the charismatic part of that, and who's going to fail in that, and I think there's all kinds of variables that go on in that kind of discussion there. Trump's going to have to keep his temper, have to, level out his criticism of Biden, but, still be forceful. We know he's going to be consistently negative the entire time. Failed foreign policy, weak president, weak economy, failed economy, jeopardized world. Those will be all things that we hear from him. On the Biden side, what can we do to emphasize the continued economic recovery in Arizona, the Recovery Act, the Infrastructure Act that Trump tried to get passed for years, but he actually got done with the support of Mark Kelly and Kyrsten Sinema. And then maybe on the immigration side, he's going to call him weak on immigration. Is Biden going to respond to that, going, "You undercut my bill"? You're the one that you're the one that's putting America in jeopardy because it's all about you. I expect that to be a significant part of Biden's pitch tonight is you're not here for us. You're not here for the country. You're here for you because you're trying to stay out of jail. I mean, I think there's going to be some narratives like that.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see if he can grab that fish and rise him to the surface because that's what Biden's trying to do. He's going to try and pull him out of the water.
Marty, Chuck mentioned it, the border, immigration, both those important issues, those aren't completely unified issues for Latinos, is it?
No, they're not, definitely. And I believe regardless of what side of the immigration issue you are, there is a crisis. There is a crisis. For those of us that cross the border, frequently, we see what's happening on both sides of the borders, the situation. Now, the issue is, as I've been moderating those debates locally here in the state also, I cannot help myself but just think the same rhetoric when it comes to immigration. And that's what I expect to hear tonight also. In this last few days, as I'm moderating those debates, I hear that, illegal immigration is a cancer. Illegal immigrants are taking our jobs, are rising the cost of our home prices. And I foresee the same thing tonight in many aspects, being the border. It is an issue. The problem, and with my 30 plus years in the media, I have not yet seen somebody coming with a solution for that, because immigration, and Chuck, you tell me if I'm wrong, immigration is always a topic that is going to get people out to vote, regardless of what side you are. So it is one of those topics that banks when it comes to elections.
Well, Arizona, I would say, is the most sophisticated immigration electorate in the country since we've been dealing with this issue for over a decade now.
Exactly.
And I think Arizonans understand you need a workable system. You need something that provides border security and promotes trade, Mexico being our largest trading partner. And, that will be part of the narrative tonight, that I would think if this issue, it's going to come up because Trump is going to bash him on the 3 million plus illegal immigrants that have entered the country under the Biden administration. And he's going to hold him to account on that, while Biden will say, you know what, it took an executive order for me to do this, and it's down 45% now, but you had a chance to fix the problem, and you undermined the solution, the bipartisan solution. And I think there's going to be a narrative back and forth on that today.
Yes.
Right, but I was going to say, can't Trump come back and say, well, if this works so well, why didn't you do this in day one of your administration instead of
that'd be a great
re-election?
That'd be a great answer.
It's the wild card for election.
No, I had this conversation with John McCain back in the day.
Yeah.
When DACA was in the deck.
Yeah.
Right before Obama committed to the DACA policy, I had a pointed conversation with John in a room with every Republican political leader in the state. And I said, John, you got to do this. You have to get DACA done. And his response at that time was really interesting. He said, Obama's going to screw it up because he's going to do an executive order, which is exactly what happened. And he took all the air out of the room by executing that executive order, and then took the pressure off the issue.
Who did this right about the same time in an election cycle?
Right. It's exactly right.
It always happens around election cycle. Like I said, it is the wild card.
Right. It's because of the politics of it, Jim, is that at the 11th hour, there's all this pressure gets built up to do something, and then somebody pulls the plug on it. And that ended up, but I thought this time I was sort of hopeful, as cynical as I am, I was sort of hopeful that Langford's effort with Sinema and others would get some traction. But the minute that looked like it was something that was going to breach the gate, Trump dumped on it.
It's only event days, but nothing gets resolved, or the issue does not get resolved. And that is the problem with immigration. And it's supply and demand issue for our country in many ways.
That is Mari Rábago, who's a former Univision news anchor. Did you notice, by the way, that she kind of took over my job for a second? It's like she's asking you questions.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
She can't help herself.
She's comfortable.
Last time on a
She's
video,
comfortable. Yeah. Just give her a camera. She's a very pretty girl. She could be running the whole show here. You and I can step
All
outside.
habits. I'm sorry. My apologies.
I love it. I really do. But I wanted to ask you, really, doesn't it come down to this? Latinos really care about the same things that all Americans of all backgrounds care about. I mean, making enough money to put food on the table, feeling secure in your neighborhood, knowing that we're not going to war anytime soon. So really, when we're talking about the issues that are important to Hispanics and Latinos, it's what all Americans care about.
The same thing that worries you at home is what worries us at home. Economy, education, healthcare, those are the basic ones. Obviously, because of the nature of the Latino community that we have, if we're not first-time immigrants, we have relatives or, in that situation, immigration is definitely one of the 4 topics that I would say are in the interest of every Latino voter right now. And another unique thing is that a lot of the people in that community, one voter represents 5 and 6 people in their ideology, in their needs, and their wants. Why? Because not everyone in a household in the mixed status that we have in most of the families are able to vote. Right. So you do not only talk to Latino voters, you talk to the family. That would be,
and you said this earlier. You said that's not going to be Trump's rhetoric tonight. Trump's rhetoric is going to be criminalization of the entire illegal immigrant population. It's a grievance, right? It's a grievance culture rhetoric that Trump has turned the Republican Party into here. Because, in my life, I remember being part of a Republican Party that wanted immigration reform and wanted to have something that would be good. That's not where he's at today. He is at a head point of a grievance culture, reminding people, as he will tonight, that Biden let in 3 million illegal immigrants, and that's not okay. It's an invasion, Jim. That's what he's going to say.
Well, and it puts him at odds with the Chamber of Commerce Republicans.
Yes, that's.
Like I said, a lot of our people in our community have part ways with the Republican Party. We are, for traditional, very conservative. But because of that topic of immigration and how strong the rhetoric has been negative towards our community, you'll see a lot of Latinos that they identify themselves as a Republican, with all the other issues. But that one is kind of hard to swallow when they're calling you, criminal or this or that. Yeah. And that is not the case. There's bad apples in every single community. I'm sorry, you cannot generalize.
It's interesting. I have a friend who grew up in South Los Angeles. He's a Latino guy, and we were talking the other day, and I mentioned that I was going to have somebody that you're very familiar with, Jan Brewer, was on my AZ Political podcast, which comes out tomorrow. And he turned to me and he said, ask her why she hates Mexicans so much. And I was like, whoa, hang on a second. She's actually a very nice person, right?
Right.
And but it all goes back to 1070.
Right.
And so can Republicans do anything as far as border security goes without losing some Latino votes? I'll ask you that first, Chuck, and I'll let Marty get the last word on that.
It's why I'm working on an initiative right now, Jim, to create open primaries in Arizona. So we create an environment where we can talk about solutions like that right now. But right now, our election system panders to the extremes on both sides and allows the rewarding of a victimization culture where we're a victim, you're the criminal. And on the very progressive Democratic side, the identity politics on the left, and you're not part of us, and you're not supporting America, and it's an invasion, and so it is part of, unfortunately, where we are at today, where we have to navigate these issues in this cycle where we are at today, and we're going to be one of these guys is going to be president. And we're going to be back where we were. It's going to be back exactly in the similar situation, and it's going to be, can we develop a bipartisan immigration package that actually will work?
I have a dream like that, famous speech in this country, where as a voter, I could go and listen to a candidate that can speak their mind, not the issues selected by their parties, but really what they would think and do. And as a human being, as we are all, in particular, for me to be able to vote, not because of the red or the blue, but I can vote because of the ideology of that candidate, because of what he's proposing, what he's about, and not because of the party. That to me would be a big change. And when you mention the open primaries, I think that would definitely make a big difference once it is implemented, because dreams come true.
Well, but where we're at today is in this punishment culture, and we're going to be in this situation again with this very same discussion tonight. And how to mature this issue. And I think Biden is trying to do more of that than Trump is right now. Trump's going to blame him. You'll hear all that rhetoric tonight, which leads me to believe, in terms of prognosticating how the cycle is going to go, is that Trump's going to have a hard time winning more than 50% of the vote, because there's significant majority of the electorate, 55 to 58, 60%, that wants to see something done on this, particularly with Arizona. As I said earlier, Arizona voters are more sophisticated about this. And I think that rhetoric hurts him in Arizona more than it helps him.
And I have a question for everyone listening too. So, how many times we have heard from Trump that Latinos or illegal immigrants are criminals? So how are the voters feeling supporting somebody that has been convicted or found guilty of, 34 counts? I mean,
You knew Chuck was going to like that one.
Just saying.
I imagine that's going to come up tonight.
I would love to hear the response on that one.
Yeah. Interestingly, I think some people, when they say that, they mean literally breaking the law, the federal misdemeanor of crossing the border illegally. For other people, they believe, and this is wrong, they believe that somebody who's in the country illegally is more likely to commit a more serious offense, which doesn't bear out statistically.
No.
But I am the offspring of an immigrant. He didn't raise me, but I had a great relationship with him before he passed away. My biological father was an immigrant, came from Jamaica, of all places. And people that, do it the right way, and I'm using my quotation fingers.
Oh, my God.
They get
I'm going to jump out of my chair right now with that.
A lot of folks, though, that feel like they did it the right way, they went through the entire process, paid thousands of dollars, get really upset at people who they think are, and I'm using my quote fingers against, jumping the line.
Just for the fact. If there was a right way to do it, you think people would be risking their lives crossing the border in July and August? As simple as that. And the difference is that you don't look like me, Jim. I'm sorry. When they talk about criminal illegal immigrants, it's people that look like me. My color of skin, that have my accent. That's the type of immigration that they're referring to, not the ones that come from Canada, Europe, or anywhere else. I'm sorry, but it's the fact.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem that we've endured out here for ever since Joe Arpaio was elected sheriff, and we had the 1070 thing, the check your papers law, which was immensely popular at the time that when she signed it, because the border was in a worse state then than it is today.
Is that really true?
Well,
is that possible? We have seen record numbers.
Well, we weren't checking
but the cost to our state.
We weren't checking anybody in on asylum, Jim. They were just coming.
That's true. That's true.
There was nothing going on back
but
then.
It hurt all our pockets. I mean, that's a fact. I think that's one of the biggest lessons Arizonans should learn from history when it comes to, anti-immigrant rhetoric, because that hurt and affected all of us, regardless of what side you were. If you were supporting SB 1070 or against, all of us paid that price.
Yeah, but politics abhors a vacuum, and it gets filled because people get frustrated and they look to elected leaders for answers. And, we knew when she was signing that bill, it was a problematic bill because this is the duties of the federal government.
That's why she took so long to decide to vote it.
We debated it and worked it and worked it. But at the end of the day, you have to show that you can do something, and she made an effort to do that. And
is that Biden's executive action too?
Yeah, that's similar to what
he... Band-Aid, another Band-Aid that doesn't bring results.
So is there anything that Trump can do tonight, Mari, that would bring in people who have been against what he's said as far as the border goes? Is there anything he can say tonight to bring them over to his side?
Not to myself, and I don't want to speak to all of them, but, I think when it comes only to immigration, it would be an immigration reform, which we know he's not pro that.
Yeah, he's gonna pitch the border security angle. And let's be honest, there's a lot of Hispanic voters that are very open to that discussion because back to what we've said before, I got here. I'm here. I am of legal.
Second and third generations of Latinos.
Exactly.
Yes.
Many small business owners, many gun owners, many Budweiser drinkers. I mean, that's your older Hispanic
You know my community very well.
Yeah.
As I was explaining to you, we're very diverse and we come in layers.
Yeah. I had a guy, one of my, Scott Smith, who works with me at the office. He was coming back from Maryville a couple years ago, and he's like, Chuck, there's all these guys in pickup trucks with guns on their sides in Maryville, and they're all drinking Budweiser. And I said, yeah, that's a significant part of the Hispanic community in Arizona.
Big time.
Thank you once again to Mari Rábago and to Chuck Coughlin for joining us here on our presidential debate preview.
Arizona Votes 2024 special, hosted by Jim Sharpe.
All right, still to come, about 10, 15 minutes from right now, NBC News chief political analyst Chuck Todd will join us to talk about the national perspective of Arizona and our swing state status. Here is former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. What she told me are the Arizona issues she wants to hear about in tonight's debate.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing them talk about the economy and the security of the border. I think those are the two issues that are on everybody's minds, and we need to move on and talk about policy and not talk about junk.
And as we bring in longtime Valley News guy Steve Goldstein,
was that because of junk? Is that why?
Well, when
Jim?
she says junk, no. When she says junk, she means stolen election conspiracy theories. Because she wrote that op-ed piece for the Republic the other day, and saying, "Hey, let's get off this. Let's start talking about the issues." But I find it interesting that the two top issues for Arizona, I feel like, are the two top issues for the whole country. And I know you've been hearing this because you've been moderating debates. You just told me you did 2 in one day. That's crazy.
Back-to-back days, Jim. Yeah.
And I'm sure that has been the topic of almost every single debate, whether it's, dog catcher or senator.
Everyone, we start with border security, immigration, every single one.
Yeah.
And last night, I would tell you, I had the one-on-one with Mark Lamb running for Senate against Kerry Lake. And I actually brought up the issue of 2020, 2022, were these elections stolen? And he was quick to say, never seen evidence. I don't want to talk about that. And then he threw out the one that I loved, and he did a great job last night. But said to me, the media is always bringing that up. I said, I think your opponent in the Senate race is the one that brings it up. So, yes, once we get past 2020 and 2022, whether we're stolen or not, it's immigration, it's inflation, and abortion for many people as well.
Yeah, and this is really interesting because I've been kind of sorting through this over the last few weeks. So a lot of people are very serious about this topic. They have super close to their heart held beliefs about abortion, either for or against. But there is also an element that has decided to put this on the ballot in Arizona because they know it will drive Biden voters to the ballot box. Conversely, the Secure the Border Act, the ballot, it's not an initiative, it's a referendum. The ballot referendum is in some ways designed to drive Trump voters to the ballot box.
Indeed, except the one thing I'm wondering about, and you've been here for as long as I have, is there's that specter of 1070 that still comes up. Whether this new HCR has any resemblance to that at all.
Yeah.
There is the argument by some that it does. So whereas I hate to say the abortion argument is an easier one for folks, but again, whatever side of the line you're on. But when it comes to this, if you have enough people in the independent, slightly right of center folks, they might say, wait, 1070? Oh, no, we're not going through that again. So I know where you're going with this as far as the issue, but the actual thing, if people are convinced that this is going to destroy the business community or hurt it, then you might see something there.
But in the same way that the gay marriage issue was on so many state ballots in 2004, and it drove a lot of George W. Bush voters to the polls, immigration might have the same effect. Let me ask you this. I've moderated a couple of gubernatorial debates through the years. Have you ever had anything even close to as crazy as what we saw the last time around with a presidential debate, like in person, and you're saying to yourself, I have no control over this room?
No, in fact, that's one of the things they had us, when I was doing some thinking and prepping for this, I've done debates for years, as you have, and I watched one debate, I think it was out of Louisiana, and let's say it was in the last cycle, it might have been 2022, 2020, and there's a critic that came on after the debate, the local news station, and he was hilarious. He was a guy who'd been a newspaper reporter, newspaper editor, and had good relationships with the two moderators. And he got on there and said, you know why this debate was terrible? Because the moderators suck. They were terrible. They just let people walk all over them, and that's blah, blah, blah. But some of the ones I've done this cycle, I've been stunned. The one that stunned me the most was CD8. The Republicans there.
Blake Masters, Abe Hamadeh. That primary is the general election.
Absolutely. Right, because of redistricting. So I think it's incredible to have watched that. I expected, because of the ads we've seen from Blake Masters to Abe Hamadeh, thought they were going to go crazy after each other. Not even close. They were as polite as possible to each other and to me and Marty Rábago. They were just, so that will stun me. So I don't expect to see the fireworks in the same way, because that was the one I thought was going to fireworks, and there were none.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah. I've had, criticisms from some of the candidates about questions, but I've never had anybody just go, interrupt the other person, refuse to be quiet, it get to the point where one person tells the other person will you just shut up, But I think that is part of the appeal. I think that's one of the reasons CNN is glad they landed this debate.
It's going to be massive because, I mean, it may be the only one they do. We don't know for sure, but I would suspect probably so. And you're in a position where you've got these two people that we all know very, very well. In fact, Jim, this is one of the things that strikes me. I mean, you talk about this almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do we reach the stage where the undecided voters, if you're undecided, you're probably not watching this debate, I don't think. I mean, I know it would make sense for that to be the reason to have it, but I think it's mostly going to be the Trump camp, the Biden camp to kind of cheer their guys on in a sense, figuratively, because we're looking at what, maybe 4% of the entire population, maybe 1.5% in Arizona that aren't quite sure. Also, how are you not sure yet? And why are you waiting on a debate to convince you?
Well, I think there may be these voters out there, those who, 8 years ago, 4 years ago, voted for Donald Trump and they're waiting to see that version of Donald Trump come back around, or maybe even the case with Joe Biden, who was billed as a moderate Democrat and capitulated to a lot of the far left wing of his party on some issues.
I don't think that we go back to 2016 with Donald Trump. If people loved him then, and that's fine. Or people in 2020 with Biden, they were just like, make America boring again. Wasn't that one of their big statements?
Right, yeah.
So clearly those men were not at their best 4 years ago.
Yeah.
We've talked about, it's not just age. It's about, they've been on the national stage in different ways, both of them for decades.
Right.
We know about as much about them as we're ever going to know, whether it's about their kids, about themselves, about what they like to do in their spare time. So again, I'm saying that these men are not in their prime. I'm hoping that neither one of them has, this is how I think. I'm hoping neither one of them has too many major gaffes tonight. Yeah. Because then that's going to be the entire talking point.
Yeah,
afterwards.
no, you're right. But besides rhetorical Molotov cocktails, there is the possibility that somebody's got a bombshell, though, too. It's like, by the way, and they whip out this piece of paper, I have here evidence that Joe Biden, used to be a circus elephant, or something strange like that pops up. And I don't mean really like weird like that, but, it's just, huh? And then everybody steps back and goes, what? But I don't think anybody could be shocked that way about Donald Trump.
No, but I also think they wouldn't. There are so many things we've heard about Biden, whether, he likes to give too many massages or something. I mean, they're just weird things about both of these guys because they're men who are 80-ish. So, basically it's all out there for us to find wherever we want to find it. So, right. Yes. And the October surprise, in this case, the July surprise or June surprise, sorry about that. I don't. Jim, I just don't know. I don't think this is going to be a fantastic debate. I'm hoping, though, that the CNN folks are not like the mistake umpires make in a baseball game and make it about themselves. Because we really don't care about them. I mean, I should say this as a moderator. You've been a moderator. Right. I think it's really about the people on the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. That's because you don't get to vote for the moderator, right?
Although, I would vote for you.
I appreciate
that.
Write
in, maybe? Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want to be written in because the majority of people written in are actually Mickey Mouse. So it's like I don't want to be put in that exact category. Driving in the car as we're doing this, hands-free, I hope. Just want to make sure you're being all safe.
Well, I'm riding. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Got you. You're in the back of a car. Okay. All right.
Yes.
And I'm glad because my program director was like, should we send him a video link? I'm like, no, I don't think that's
it'd have been illegal probably if I was trying to drive. Not to say I haven't done that for you before.
Yeah.
I'll do that in the morning for you, not in the afternoon.
Okay, gotcha. So
New York rush hour.
Even though Biden and Trump are really unpopular separately and even more so together, there is a AP NORC Center for Public Affairs research poll that shows 6 in 10 American adults are very likely to watch some element of this evening's CNN presidential debate. Why? Don't we know enough about these guys after all these years?
I think the curiosity is less about what we think we know about them, and more, I really think this is about how do they look? Can they handle this? I think the interest in this debate is more of the caricatures, right? And, we live in a very fragmented society, and I think that frankly, 40% of America thinks that Biden is drooling all the time, and somebody's pulling the strings. 40% of Americans think Donald Trump is absolutely insane and getting ready to start a dictatorship, right? So you have this sort of totally and I think there's almost well, who's right about this, right? And I think that, this is why I believe both candidates have more to lose than gain, and I think this interest in it
really is about, are they as bad as the caricature? Are they as bad as the stereotype? And I think that is the unknown tonight that I think is making Americans curious, at least sort of car wreck curious at a minimum.
Right. It's certainly historic. It's been since 1892 when Grover Cleveland beat Benjamin Harrison, who beat him 4 years earlier, since we've had a former president taking on a current president. But I also feel like it's historic because, well, for Arizona, the top Arizona issues are the top issues for America. This is an opportunity for Biden and Trump to talk to our swing state here.
I do, and I think we're going to get a lot on border security and immigration tonight. I don't know how you don't, in particular, and I know that's a top issue. And then you're going to get a lot on the economy. I mean, when you look at it, particularly from Biden, how does he handle those two issues? And then with Trump, it's how does he handle reproductive rights, and how does he handle some of the foreign policy and the democracy and January 6th stuff, right? I mean, each has what I think are true vulnerabilities where the public doesn't like their actions, right? The public does not like Trump's position on abortion or January 6th. The public does not like Biden's actions or lack of, whatever you want to call them, on the border. And they're frustrated with this economy. Some blame Biden, some don't, but they're certainly frustrated with this economy. And I think that in both of those cases, right, and you look at it, I mean, look, this is a case where Arizona's issues are Georgia's issues. Georgia's issues are Michigan's issues. Michigan's issues are, you get where I'm going here, right?
Yeah.
In this case, I think there isn't a lot of distinction between the swing states and any sort of niche issues. Maybe there's nuclear waste in Nevada. Like that would be about the one place where a state has a.
Isn't Nevada just nuclear waste anyway? Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
I know it.
Nice.
You laugh about this, but this really, I really hope, at the end of the day, everybody wants more nuclear energy. Okay, where does the waste go? Nobody will say a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking to NBC News chief political analyst Chuck Todd in our CNN presidential debate preview, which you can hear live at 6 tonight, Arizona time, here on KTAR. Is there anything that either candidate can do well, let me put it this way. Are you expecting either candidate to say something that we might not expect them to say? Like, for instance, Trump moderating his position on abortion tonight in some way, shape, or form to try and win people over?
Yeah, I think that's always possible. I doubt it. I really think I have a sneaking suspicion that for as much hype that we thought going into this, uncertainty there is, that there's going to be a lot of risk averseness in both of them. I think the format favors sort of being a little more careful here. I just, if you're, when you start to do new things when you're kind of desperate or you think you're losing, we're in a weird situation this week. Both campaigns think they're doing better than they were 6 weeks ago.
Wow.
Right? That was not the case 6 weeks ago. But right now, both campaigns seem to believe they are in a stronger position now than they were when they all agreed to this debate. Certainly Biden thinks he's in a strong position. And, you just look at the metrics, and Trump is in a stronger position than he was 6 weeks ago, particularly financially, and certainly gotten, it looks like, the legal issues. He's gotten through the one that's going to probably be the one that hangs over his head during this campaign. So I think when you've seen these before, how often, especially when there's going to be a second debate, how often is a first debate more cordial than you expect?
Yeah,
when there's going to be a second debate.
That's a good point. I got to say one quick story. We're waiting to go see Hamilton last night at the ASU Gamage Center, and we're eating at this restaurant across the street. They have all these TV screens, and all of a sudden your face pops up on the screen. I'm like, oh, there's my friend Chuck. I tell the kids, and they're like, every person who appeared on NBC News now after you are like, do you know him too? Do you know him too? And not the case.
Well, I hear you. Yeah, I'm guessing that was, it's usually other networks who are interested in what I have to say.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Thanks a lot, NBC News chief political analyst Chuck Todd, who joins us most Fridays on Arizona's Morning News.